Hello, everyone. I think we're live now. How's everyone doing? Say hi in the chat. Let us know where you are watching from. Today, we're going to talk about MongoDB Atlas. We're going to basically go through setting up a new cluster, adding some sample data, and then we're going to look at a to-do application. We're going to build it in Next.js, and it's going to be powered by MongoDB Atlas. So we've got some people, it looks like, from Nashville, New York City, where else? Canada. Nice, from all over, it looks like. Memphis. Hopefully, pretty soon we'll be able to get out to those cities and see everyone in person again. But for now, live streams are great. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and jump in. We're going to sign up for Atlas, create a cluster, and just start from the very beginning. If you have any questions, be sure to put them in the chat. We have Nick and Sherry out there helping me moderate the chat. So thank you to them. Say thanks to them for me. And MongoDB, if you see the name MongoDB pop up, that is Nick. So let's go ahead and share my screen. And there's Otto. That's my boss, by the way. All right. So we're here on mongodb.com. Very easy. Just go ahead and click Start for free. And just type in your email and create a password. Or you can just sign up with Google. Either way, super easy. Go ahead and sign up, and then I'm just going to sign in because I've already got an account created. The next thing that you're going to see is this right here, deploy a cloud database. And we have a few options here. So serverless is in preview. It's our newest option where you can actually, you're only going to pay for the operations that you run, as opposed to our dedicated, which is the standard where you're paid, or you're going to pay a monthly fee, no matter whether you use it or not. So again, this is in preview. It doesn't have all of the functionality of our dedicated clusters, but it is great for testing right now. And if you want to use it to test something out, it's great. Our dedicated clusters, again, have network isolation, on-demand performance, and multi-region and multi-cloud options available. Today, we're going to use the shared cluster. So no credit card is required. It's free forever. So we're going to go ahead and create that. Next, we'll just pick our cloud provider. We have all three of the large cloud providers, AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. And then click the region that's closest to you. And then we can optionally upgrade our cluster. If you want to upgrade to maybe an M2, it's only $9 a month, or you can just stay on the free forever plan. If you do upgrade to at least an M2, then you could also add backup. But we are just going to use this for testing. This is perfect for learning and for testing. So we're just going to keep all of the defaults here. You can also change the name of the cluster if you want. I'm just going to leave the defaults and create the cluster. All right, so this is just going to take a couple of minutes to set up or to provision. So while it's doing that, let me just take a quick look at the chat and see if there's any other questions so far. All right, chance of covering how to migrate an existing replica set. We're not going to cover that today. This is going to kind of be a basic stream, but we could definitely cover that in the future. And then, so while this is setting up, let's go ahead and there's two things that we need to do in order to connect to our cluster. So we're going to go to database access, and we are going to, well, let me delete that. I should have deleted that already. So we're going to add a new database user. And what we're going to do is use password authentication, and then we'll just say something like Mongo is going to be our username, and then we can generate a secure password. I'm going to go ahead and copy that password so that I have it. And then we can choose whether this user, or what privileges this user has. So read and write to any database. There's some built-in roles, and then advanced privileges, but we're just going to keep it at the read and write to any database. And we can also restrict access to specific clusters, or make this user a temporary user. And then in that case, the user would automatically be deleted after a specified time frame. All right, so we are going to go ahead and add that user. And the second thing that we need to do is create network access. Let me delete that. So this is what you'll see, network access. So we're going to add an IP address. This is going to prevent, or by default, the cluster is locked down. You can't access it. So we need to put an IP address on the list here so that we can access it. We can add our current IP address or allow access from anywhere, which I wouldn't recommend. That's kind of a security risk, especially in production. You wouldn't want to do that. Or you can, if you already know that you have a server that is going to be accessing this database and you know the IP address of that, you can enter that here, or a range of IP addresses. I'm just going to add my current IP address and then confirm. And now only computers from my network can access this cluster with the username that we created. All right, so let's go back and check on our database. It looks like it is finished setting up there. And let me just go back to the comments one more time, see if there's any questions. Will this stream be able to watch later? Yes, that will be available. Let's see, any other questions? Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is load some sample data. So here under databases, we're going to load a sample data set. And this is going to take another couple of minutes to run. And while that is running, I'm just looking through the comments one more time here. Okay, it looks like everyone is on the same page. I think I actually forgot to introduce myself. I introduced Sherry and Nick, but I'm Jesse. You might also know me from my YouTube channel, Code Stacker. But we are going to wait for this sample data to load. And what we're going to do after it's done loading is we're going to connect and look at it from a really cool VS Code extension. So in order to do that, we're going to click Connect. And then connect using MongoDB Compass. We're not going to use Compass, but this is the same connection string that we need. So we're going to copy this connection string. And then let's go to VS Code. All right, in VS Code, if you don't have the extension installed already, it is the MongoDB VS Code extension. All right, once you get that installed, you'll have this little leaf on the side. And we can add a connection. So this is where we're going to add that connection string. Just click connect, paste that in there. Now what we'll need to do is put in our password there. So let's see, have that password on the side here. And I'm not worried about if you see the password because you can't access the cluster anyway because you're not on my network. So it is still secure. And now we can see now we can see our cluster. I'm just looking at the comments real quick here. All right, so we have our sample data loaded. we have our Inflix database. It looks like there's still some that are loading. Let's go back and check that one more time. Sample data set is still loading. There are a few things still there that are already showing up. So under sample Inflix, we've got some comments here for our database. And let's go back to the comments. So all right, there's a comment. If you want to install MongoDB to a local server to test, is that possible with a free trial? Yeah, so the local server, community server is free. There's nothing nothing that you have to pay for there. Also, if I didn't mention, this cluster here is free forever that we've just set up, free forever, no credit card required. It is a shared cluster. And then there is also, if you look in the comments, in the chat, there is a survey. If you have just a couple of minutes, if you don't mind taking that survey for us, that would be great. All right. So what we've done so far is we've set up a free cluster and we've loaded some sample data. We set up our security access so that we can access the cluster, and we access the cluster from our VS Code extension. There's multiple ways to access it. We do have the Compass software, which you can install as well. Or you can just go to Browse Collections here in the Atlas dashboard, and you can see your collections here as well. Of course, the data is still loading, so that's probably why it's taking a minute to load. So next, what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at the MongoDB Next to-do repo on GitHub. So what this is a to-do app that is going to allow you to connect to MongoDB and test out the basic CRUD functionality. So CRUD is create, read, update, and delete. So what I'm going to walk you through here is cloning this and then running it on your end. So what we'll do is we'll go to code. So if you want to follow along step by step, code, and then we're going to copy this URL. Alternatively, you could download the zip file and just unzip it that way. But I find it much easier just to copy this, and then we'll go back into VS Code. And I'm just going to open up a new window here. And if you're signed in to GitHub in VS Code, you'll see this clone repository button. So I'm going to click clone repository, paste in that URL. So that's the MongoDB next to-do.git. And it's going to ask me where I want to put it. And I'm just going to put it in my documents for now and select that. It's going to clone this and ask if we want to open it. Of course, we want to open it. And then this is a new feature of VS Code. Do we trust this code? Well, I hope I can trust that I created it. So yes, I trust it. And so now we have cloned the GitHub repo onto our local machine now. So the next step is we're going to open up our terminal. We're going to do an npm install. And that's going to install all of the dependencies that we need for this project. It's just going to take a second to install. Let me just go take a look at the chat one more time. Looks like we're good on chat. Okay, so then that's finished installing. And then once this is installed, there is a README here as well that has all of the instructions. So what we just did is we logged into MongoDB Atlas. We cloned this repo. We did npm install. So the next step is we're going to rename the env.local.example to env.local. All right, so right over here, env.local example. Let's just rename that to .local. And now we need to input our MongoDB URI and database. So we'll get that from back to MongoDB. Let me find that window. I have too many windows open. And if we go to connect, this time we're going to choose connect your application. And we're going to copy this connection string. And then we'll go back to MongoDB, and that is the URI, that connection string. And we'll need to change password again. Let me go grab my password. And then for the database, you can name it whatever you want, whatever database you want to create. We're going to create a to-do database. So I'm just going to type in to-do. Save that, close it. And then the next step is this is outlining how to get your connection string. And so the next step is we can just npm run dev and see if it's working. So let's open up our terminal again. Npm run dev. So again, this is a Next.js application. So that is now running on localhost 3000. But we could use our built-in browser here and open that up. And let me just check the comments. All right. So this is what it will look like. So we can add a to-do. So let's just do one, add that. We can add to-do 2. But we can complete or delete. And we have this message here that you are connected to MongoDB. So what we're going to do, I'm just looking at the time. Yeah. So I was debating on whether to build this app out from scratch and show you step by step, or if I should just walk through step by step how it was built. Let me know in the comments which one you would rather. Do you want me to just start from scratch, or just kind of walk through how I did it? While I'm waiting on responses for that question, let's go back to explaining the basics of how this connects to MongoDB. So in Next.js, we have under util, we have this MongoDB JS. So this is the back end of basically how this is connecting to MongoDB. So we have in our package JSON, we have a dependency of MongoDB. Of course, we have React, Next, but MongoDB, that's the important part there. So in this MongoDB JS utility, we're using the MongoDB client, and we're getting our URI and our database from the local env variables. All right, and so then it's just going to throw an error if we don't have the URI or if we don't have the database. And then down here is the important part. So we're exporting this connected database function. So what it's going to do is it's going to check to see if there's a cached connection. If there is a cached connection already, it's going to return that. If there's not, then it's going to create a new connection using our URI, and then using the client to connect to our database. It's going to return that. So I've got a bunch of, I'm looking at the comments one more time. Got a bunch of start from scratches and just a couple of walkthroughs. So, all right, we'll start from scratch. Let me close this. And also, let's go ahead and just start. Let me start up a new project here. 1 second. Okay. Code. All right, so I have a new project folder open here. And let me just check the chat one more time. Oh, yeah, so I was asking if everyone wanted me to start building this, this to-do app from scratch, or just do a walkthrough of it. So we're going to start from scratch. And what we'll do is open up the terminal again. So we're going to use Next.js, and we're going to use a MongoDB Next.js template. So that's going to make our lives a little bit easier. We're going to get it set up a lot quicker. So we're going to say npx create next app. Then we're going to use the example of with MongoDB. And I'm going to say dot to install it in this directory. So that's going to take a second to download and install. So that's step one. So if you're following along, let's see, I'm just looking at the comments while that's installing. Looks good. Okay, so now we have our basic Next.js starter with MongoDB installed. So if we just did an npm run dev now, this is not going to work, and that's actually a good thing. I'll show you why it's not working. Let's do our sample browser, simple browser, and we've got an error because we forgot to put in our URI. All right, so let's do that. So we have to do that again. Go back to this local example here and enter our env variables again. Let's see if I saved those. So we're going to go back and get that URI from MongoDB, put in our password, and then the database, again, we're just going to call it to do. Save that. And now if we reload, I'm going to stop that server and run it again. And then let's refresh, and we should get connected this time. There we go. So, all right, so this is the basic Next.js demo or template with MongoDB. It says we are connected. Cool. So now that we're connected, and I already showed you, so if we go to lib, we have that MongoDB.js utility, and that is how it actually connects to MongoDB. All right, so next what we're going to do is go to the index. So if we go to pages and then index, this is, again, all Next.js stuff. So we've got our head, and then this is, remember, that connect to database export that is coming from our MongoDB utility. So we're going to use this connect to database. If we go all the way down to this get server-side props, which is, again, it's a Next.js thing. So get server-side props is going to run, it's an async function. It's going to get data for our app server-side. So it's kind of a Next.js built-in thing. And this is where we're getting our client from connect to database. So getting some comments. What are you making? I'm making a Next.js to-do app powered by MongoDB. So we're getting our client from connect to database, and then is connected is basically client.isConnected, right? So we're checking to see if we're connected, and then we're going to return that as props. So back up here to the beginning, that is where is connected is being passed into our home component, and then we're checking to see if we're connected, and this is a ternary operator. So if we are connected, then we're going to return you are connected. If we're not connected, then we're going to say you're not connected, go check the README for instructions. So that's where all of that is coming from. Let me just go back to the comments one more time here. Okay, looks like we're okay. All right, so next step is I like to make things easy. And so what we're going to do is let me just server, and we're going to use Tailwind, and we're going to set it up real quick. So we're going to do npm I for install, and then D is going to be a dependency. So actually, let me see if, yeah, that's it. Okay, so it's Tailwind CSS latest. And then we also need post CSS latest and auto prefixer latest. For spelling, I'm bad at spelling mistakes. Latest, post CSS, and auto prefixer. Yeah, okay. So we're gonna get those installed and get Tailwind set up real easy, real quick. All right. So now the next thing we'll do is npx tailwind css init -p. But this is just going to add a couple of files here. So now we have our post CSS config and our tailwind config. So in our tailwind, all we need to do is, I'm just going to copy and paste this purge. So we are going to that part of it. There we go. All right. So what tailwind is going to do is it starts out with a bunch of predefined classes, and it's going to purge any classes that we don't use, and basically minify all the CSS. And then the last part is in our index. We'll go up here and we're going to just import the tailwind CSS. Now we have all of that set up. Now we can get to the actual coding portion. Go down here. The first thing we're going to do is modify our connection to MongoDB. So in our get server-side props, we're going to also get our database. Besides the client, we're going to get the client and the database from our connected database. And then we're still going to do the is connected. And then we also need to get our collection. So we're going to say const collection equal database.collection. Then we're going to have a to-dos collection. After that, we're going to create a const of to-dos. That's going to equal await. And then collection.find. And we're just going to find everything. We want to return all of our documents that are in that collection. It's going to be a to array. That's going to return an array. And then we're going to return as props the is connected still. So we want to check to make sure we're connected. But we're also going to return to-dos, which is going to be our to-dos. But because Next.js is a little strict, which is okay, it's a good thing, we need to make sure that we serialize this data. It has to be able to parse the data. So in order to do that, we're going to have to say JSON parse, and then JSON stringify to-dos. All right, so that should be everything that we need in order to return our to-dos. So let's then go up here. So we have our is connected and we're returning to-dos. So now if we go up, I'm actually just going to get rid of all of this CSS that's in here. All this this template, we don't need any of this stuff. There. Don't need any of this. And all right, so here we have is connected. We also have our to-dos. And then what we're going to do is, let me just, so I have some code off screen, which is going to be easier for me just to copy and paste this portion of it rather than typing it all out, because I know you don't want to sit here and watch me type all of this out. So we'll just read through this. All right, so we have our is connected and our to-dos. So what we're going to do is, again, this is a Next.js thing. We have our head, and then we have an H1, which is just, MongoDB Atlas Next to-do app. And then we're checking to see if we're connected. So if we're connected, we're going to display that you're connected. And then we're also going to create an unordered list, which is going to map through our to-dos. And it's going to have our to-do title right there. All right, so that's where the to-dos come from. And then if we're not connected, again, we'll just display you're not connected. Go look at the README. All right, so let's save that. And then what we'll need to do is, obviously there are no to-dos in the database yet. So for testing, let's just jump back into MongoDB Atlas. And let's see, find that screen again. There we go. All right, and then let's go to browse collections. You know what? We probably could have done this in VS Code. Let's do that Can we create a database in VS Code? Go here, add a database to do. Oops. Well, I haven't done that in VS Code before, so let's do it this way. Databases, let's go browse collections. And don't forget to smash the like button. That's what Nick just said. How's it going in the chat? Why is this taking so long to load? Any ideas? Okay. Always technical difficulties when you're trying to live stream. It's always an issue. All right, let's see. Let's see. To do, and then to do's. And then let's do let me look at these comments. Yeah, that's a good idea. Somebody said use compass. Let's check it one more time. Still, that's weird. Weird. Okay, so let's call an audible here. And I have refreshed the page. Didn't I? I thought I hit refresh. Thanks, Nick. All right, I refreshed the page. That's a lot easier. All right, database name is going to be do, and the collection name is to-dos. Okay, so we have our to-do and our to-dos. And there we go. Okay. Some reason there is a to-do there. Oh, that was from before. I didn't even think about that. We used the we used the GitHub app to create a to-do. And so there is a to-do there. We could have just skipped all of that. Okay, so let's go back on track here. Npm Run Dev. Let's run this. And let's see, do I still have that open here? I do. Let's refresh. Get rid of the sidebar too. Okay, so it is working. We're connected and we're displaying the to-do title. That's great. All right, let me just go back at the comments one more time. Yeah, I know. Like always something pops up. Okay. So what we need to do now, this is Next.js again. So we need to add some API routes. What we're going to do is we're going to handle this using the Next.js API functionality. So under pages, we're going to add a new file. And actually, we're going to add a whole folder structure here. So it's going to be API / to-dos / we're going to use basically it's like a universal default global identifier. Just it'll handle any route basically. So we're going to create this. So what this will do is this route, this API route, will handle API/todos. It'll handle API/todos/ID or slash whatever. It's just like a universal route handler. And so what we're going to do here is, let me just go ahead and import or just copy over this code here because. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull in our connect to database from, it looks like this is supposed to be lib MongoDB. So we're pulling in this utility, our connect to database. Now, MongoDB stores the documents actually in BSON format instead of JSON format. It adds extra types to the data. We're going to be specifically looking at the documents IDs. And so in order to do that, we need to pull in this object ID method so that we can convert a string into an object ID, right? So we're going to use that a little bit later. So now we're going to export this default function, which has a request and a response. We're going to pull out of our request. We're going to destructure the query ID and the method. We want to know what method it was. It's a put, a post, a delete, right? And then we're also going to pull out our database from our connect to database, and then define our collection, which is to-dos. We'll have a result and a to-do variable, which we'll use a little bit later. Now we're going to use a switch case on the method. So we want to know, is this a post method? Is it a put method? Or is it a delete method? And then we'll handle those accordingly. So if it's a post, then we're going to destructure the new to-do title from our request body. So we're going to pass that to the request body, which I'll show you in just a minute. And this is where we are actually talking to the MongoDB database. We are going to, in our collection, insert one. So we're going to insert a new to-do. And by default, we're going to say that it's not completed. So completed is going to be false, right? And then we're going to get some results sent back to us. So we're going to pull those results out of the operations. The first operation, which would be an index of 0, is going to be the to-do that was added. So then we're going to respond back to the client. Again, remember, this is the server-side script that's running, right? So the client-side script is going to be returned the to-do so that it knows that it was added. And then it will be added into it'll be then added into the state on the client side. Very similar on the put. The put is going to be an update. So we're going to have the ID and the completed, pulling that out of the request body. Then we're going to create a filter and what we want to do with the document. So this is kind of like a setup. What do we want to filter? We want to filter by the object ID. So remember the BSON object ID. We're going to parse this ID, which we're going to be passing to the this API route. And then what do we want to update on the document? So we're going to use the $set operator to change complete to the completed that we passed into the API. So if we passed true or if we passed false, that's what's going to be updated in the actual document. All right, so then we're going to perform the actual update here by using update one, passing filter, and update doc. And then after that, we're going to then filter out or find, using our filter, that same document and return it back to the client right here in our response. So we're going to return that back to the client so the client knows what was updated. Because we don't want to assume what we sent it is what actually happened. We want to have a response back knowing that this is what happened. This is what was updated, right? And then delete is very, very simple. So we're going to take that object ID again, and then collection.delete1, the document is going to be deleted. And then we're going to return back to the client the result deleted count. So the client will know that if it returns with a 1, that it was deleted. If it returns with a 0, then it knows it wasn't deleted. And then we have to have a default in our switch. So in our switch, if it's not a post, put, or delete, then we're just going to return with success false and a status of 400. All right, so that is the API explanation, the backend actual connecting to MongoDB, and the CRUD functionality. Let me look at the comments. All right, all right. looks like we're good there on the comments. All right, so let me save this. And then what we need to do now is interact with this API on the client side. So we have our API route set up. We're good to go there. We're going to go back into our index. And then what we need to do is create another helper utility. So in lib, we're going to create a new file called crud.js. So again, crud is create, read, update, delete. So we're going to add those utilities into this JavaScript file here. So again, let me just, let's go with the add a new to-do. So in order to add a new to-do, we're going to, from the client, we're going to call this function add to-do. And the add to-do is going to have the title and then this set the new to-do title and set to-dos. So we should probably, maybe I'm going about this backwards. Let's go and go to the index first so that you can see how that is being pulled in here. So let me go back 1 second. All right, so here in the root of this, we're going to create a components directory. And in the components, oh, that's a file. That's not a components directory. We're going to create two components. Components. All right. Why is it not updating? Yeah, I really can't catch a break here today, can I? Okay. In this components directory, we're going to create, first off, a new to-do form. So at the top of the form, we have our input where we're going to title our to-do, and then we have the add button. So we're going to create that real quick here. Yeah. Form. So in here, we're going to use state, and we're going to pull in our add to do, which we created just a minute ago in our lib crud, which changed that lib. Okay. So in this component, we'll have a set all to-dos, which will be handled in the index. I'll show you that in a minute. But here we have a new to-do title and a set new to-do title. So that's our use state, which, you know, if you're familiar with React, that's how we keep track of the state of our input. So this is our input here. And so on change, we're going to set the new to-do title as the e.target.value. All right, so we're keeping track of what the user is inputting in the title. And the value is always going to be new to-do title. The button, this is where we're going to call our add to do helper utility. So this function, we're going to pass into this the new title, the set new to do title, and the set all to dos, which is handled in the index. So now if we go back into that crud.js file, this add to do is going to fetch from our API/to-dos, and it's going to have a method of post. So this is how we're going to post, and then in the body, we're stringifying our new title. So again, if we go back into our API route, this post method is being passed that title, which is parsing from the body, and then it's inserting it, right? So let's see, I don't see any questions so far. Let's go back here. So we have this form. So let's go back into our index now, and let's pull in that form. So what we're going to do is connected. So instead of doing this, let's do right here. We're going to say new to do form. And then, oops. But we remember we need to pass this form something. So if we go in here, we see we need to pass it set all to dos. So we need to create that set all to dos. So we need import use state. Oops. VS Code is acting weird. Use state. Okay. So then in here, we'll create that state. Let's see, there's a question. How about using the use SWR hook? Yeah, I mean, there's always multiple ways of going about the same thing. I think that would work as well. Okay, so what we need in here is, what do we call it? Use or set all to-dos and all to-dos. All right, so back in index, so all to-dos and set all to-dos is going to equal use state. Why is it doing that? And then we're going to set this as to-dos or blank. So if we don't have any to-dos, we just want a blank array. So now we have that. So now we need to pass this all to-dos into this. So we'll pass it as a prop. Let's see. Set all to-dos equals all to-dos. So now we have our new to-do form passing in our set all to-dos. And then what that does is it then passes it into our utility, which then uses that to, at the end, after we've returned that it has been added, then it updates our state. So we take our state and we spread in our existing state, adding our new to-do. All right, is everything making sense so far? Any questions? I don't see any questions. Okay, so now, technically, we should be able to add a new to-do. I think, yeah. So let me open up. We're still running here. Let me just close this and Npm Run Dev. And let's go back to our browser. And all to-dos is not defined. Where is all to-dos? Oh, oops. Here we go. Let's try that one more time. All right, compiled successfully. There we go. All right, so now if we add a new to-do, it should add, but it's just not going to, oops. Do. Okay. Well, what am I missing here? Oh yeah, all to-dos. Yeah, okay. There we go. Let's see, 1 second here. Okay, so now new to-dos, set all to-dos. All right, I'm just looking at my notes here. And then, so if we do this one more time, close that, start again. And, oh yeah, I forgot about this is lib. Well, I don't know why this is. What am I missing here? Since we're getting short on time already, let me do this. Pull this one back over. Okay, so this is, again, the GitHub repo. So what we did here is, where we left off at, is we built this to-do form. And then the next component to build is the actual to-dos. So we have our completed to-dos and then our delete to-dos, which we're pulling from CRUD. So the CRUD utility. So what we're going to do is, in these, we're basically going to map through all of the to-dos and list them out. We have our to-do title, and then on click here, when we complete something, we're going to call the complete to-do CRUD helper utility. And then same thing for delete, we have our delete to-do utility. So if we go back to our CRUD, we've got a couple of extra things in this one. So we had our add to-do, which we looked at. And then we have our complete to-do, which is going to call API to-dos, and then also pass in the ID. So in that route, it's going to have the ID, and it also has the method of put. And then what we're also going to do here is delete. So delete is the API route / to-dos, and again, it is being passed in the ID. And so it's awaiting the results and then updating the state. Each one of these is updating the state after it returns the results and it verifies that the operation has been completed, right? So if we go back up to the index here, we're importing our to-dos component, our new to-do form, and then if we're connected, then we have the form and the to-dos components here. So that is, and then I think the only other part that we did the all to-dos. Yeah. So let's go and run this one, dev npm dev. And did I update the authentication failed? Oh, yes, that's why. Where is my... change this. And all right, so localhost 3000. Open up our browser. Now we know that we're connected, and we can add our to-dos. And to-do 2, to-do 3, and so on. Complete, delete, and I think that we covered all of the aspects of it. So again, if you're not familiar with Next.js, this might some of these things that we're doing, especially with the API routes, might be a little different for you. But if you're familiar with React, it's fairly easy to get up to speed on. Are there any specific questions? I'm just looking through the comments. We had a few hiccups. I apologize for that, but I think that we covered all of the information. I'm just looking through my notes again real quick. Okay, so I think we covered all the basic CRUD functionality: create, read, update, delete. All of that is being pulled in mostly from the API side here, where we are doing all of our post, put, and deletes. If you have any specific questions or if you run into issues down the road, be sure to go to the MongoDB community forums. Let's go ahead and put that up here for them to let me find that banner. There it is. So community.mongodb.com. Be sure to go there if you have any issues and let us know. We're here, glad to help you out. I hope that this helped somewhat. Again, this GitHub repo is, I've got way too many windows. All right, so this GitHub repo, you can clone it. Just put in your env variables, and then it will work for you. And then you can kind of poke through and see, on your own. That's really the best way of learning for me is doing it on my own and seeing it and poking around, figuring it out. That's the best way to learn, in my opinion, for me anyway. So, go ahead and clone it, and put in your variables and see it actually work on your computer, and that'll make it kind of come alive for you. So I hope that this has been helpful. Let me go back to the comments one more time just to see if there is any other questions. Can I show the front end? Yeah. So, so this is what the actual app looks like, if that's what you're asking. The recording will be on YouTube. Yeah, youtube.com/MongoDB. The recording will be there. I don't see any other questions. All right. So again, thanks for joining us. I hope this was helpful. Let us know if you have any questions down the road. Follow me on Twitter if you want, @CodeStacker, and I'll see everyone later. Thank you.